All right. Okay, cool. Yeah, then let's start. Well, yeah. So first of all, thanks for everyone for joining webinar. And I'm Yingjun. Today I'll be discussing. I have a file chat with Victor about the Iceberg Catalog services. And actually, more than just catalog services, we'll cover a lot of pretty interesting stuff there. And to make it clear that well, it's definitely not something about okay, just to talk about for the product we are building. No, it's not like that. Well, we are more like okay, telling what's going on there and what you should pay attention to when trying to adopt Iceberg, right? And so yeah, I can do a pretty quick intro about myself. Yeah, I'm Minjun, and I'm the founder of RisingWave. So if you don't know RisingWave, then so it's basically a stream processing system, and SQL stream processing system. Basically, you can use RisingWave to process your streaming data using Postgres SQL. And before running the company, I was at AWS Redshift, which is a data warehouse, right? And I was also at IBM Research Armadan. Yeah, I got my PhD in stream processing and database systems. And today our guest is Victor. And Victor, do you want to do a self intro?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi guys. Hello to everyone who joined that session. Well, first of all, I would like to thank you guys for organizing that webinar and giving the opportunity to talk about catalogs and icebergs. So thank you very much. Yeah, my name is Victor. I'm actually based out of Germany, and we and my co-founder Christian, we created a startup named Vakamo, and we are creator of Lakekeeper, one of Iceberg REST catalog. And we will touch about that in a second, how exactly we built Lakekeeper. From a background, I'm ex-Dremio, ex-MongoDB, so I spent my last almost 20 years around data, integrating data, building data warehouses, data lakes, lake houses, and I can cover from mainframe DB2 couple copybook going up to Oracle, SAS, SQL Server, Hadoop, MongoDB, Kafka, and now ending up with something like Iceberg.
Cool, cool. And I know that's where you were in Dremio, right? What was Dremio? I think Dremio was building something like very similar to Trino, right? Uh, is my understanding correct?
Well, it's a very interesting product because Dremio was innovating around Apache Arrow. So they're co-creator of
Oh,
Apache
mhm.
Arrow, and they provided the query engine to go and query your data on Data Lake. And they have been like kind of started to provide that type of a services, which is quite cool. And they provided a service around semantic layer. So yeah, so but you can compare that to maybe Trino as well, yes.
Cool. Yeah, we will definitely discuss more about why you started think about okay creating the project called Lakekeeper. Okay. But before we dive deeper into this topic, well, can you help us to understand what is iceberg? Because well, yeah, I know that well this webinar is all about iceberg, right? But well, can you just explain what iceberg is in plain English?
Yeah, so let me try. And especially it depends on the perspective. So for a simple user, what you have, like a Dremio user or Trino user, Iceberg is a table. So it nothing else. It's just a table as we know the table from a
Is that
Postgres
like Postgres table
database.
or what? What kind of table is that?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a relational database type of table where you
Okay.
have a
Mhm.
schema, you have fields, and then you can just go and write your SQL statement. It can be select statement, it can be update, it can be delete statement. So that's it, everything what you need to know. So it's an innovation from bottom up where you need to know that you don't need to worry about the size of a table. So it can become like a petabyte scale, and you don't need to worry about that if you need to query that petabyte of table, and it's super easy to do with a massive parallel processing. There are different query engines out there on the market, and that's type of well revolution that Iceberg is independent from the compute. So which means you can store the data as you need in a place where you have storage, and then you can take whatever compute you need for your use case, and that's kind of the beauty of Iceberg.
So Iceberg is not a query engine, right? Well, Iceberg is just storage, right?
Well, yes and no. So yes, the Iceberg is
Uh-huh.
storage in terms of that you can store the data,
Mm-hmm.
but there is a meta layer which is part of the catalog we're going to talk in a second.
Mm-hmm.
But you're absolutely correct that Iceberg is not a query engine. It's not compute because that compute is maybe Spark, maybe Iceberg. You can use Python, or maybe you can go and use something like Dremio, Trino, or like even like different tools. And one of them is RisingWave, right? So you can use RisingWave with Iceberg as well. It's pretty easy to use just to connect from RisingWave.
Yeah, oh cool, cool. In the Iceberg installing, I can use S3 or can I use any other object stores like I don't know where we store data physically.
Yeah, that's interesting thing about Iceberg that you have a freedom to store
Mm-hmm.
Iceberg on every object storages, and it
Every
can be
object store.
in a cloud, it can be on-prem, so you can use some S3 compatible storage. And I know from a discussion here
Mm-hmm.
from different companies that they're even asking to store Iceberg on HDFS. So who knows? Maybe we will see HDFS arising again and allows to store data as Iceberg.
Oh, okay. So HDFS, well, I mean, look, well, yeah. I mean, if we want to use HDFS, we still need to make sure that HDFS is S3 compatible, right? We probably have to have a layer on top of it, right?
Well, I don't have a final solution yet. It
Mm-hmm.
might be as you just described. It might be that Iceberg is going to allow you to connect to HDFS because look, if you
Mm-hmm.
use Iceberg today with Azure Data Lake storage, that type of a storage is very HDFS like, so it's not HDFS, and therefore you can use it. And there are different systems like Cloudera where you can use that with HDFS. And therefore, I think there is a future for HDFS, might be with Iceberg. So who knows? Maybe we will see that again. Because I know that a lot of people trying to say that Hadoop is kind of need to be retired, but we'll see.
Well, yeah, I saw that's what in the chat box. Well, someone mentioned that well, Cloudera does use HDFS for Iceberg, and they have already migrated many clusters from Hive to HDFS. That's
Yeah.
interesting, right? Well, because well, I remember that well, when we're still in the Hadoop world, right? Well, everyone was using Hive, but yeah. Um, Sure, yeah. Let's mention something about for the okay, more interesting things like starting from so let's just spending probably 1 or 2 minutes about for the data size, right? Well, so typically what's the data size? Like a gigabyte, terabyte, or petabyte, or what? Yeah.
Well, it's probably hard to say there is a atypical data size, but usually when we talk about Iceberg, we talk about the analytical type of tables where you store like terabytes or even petabytes. And recently, I think the Netflix was kind of showing the number in October, and then one of the biggest tables was about 36 petabyte. And that's quite impressive that you can store in Iceberg, which means you can store a huge amount of data without that limitation, what you know from a classical RDBMS.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's cool. And typically it's small companies or enterprises or what? Yeah.
Yeah, well, you will probably think from a classical approach that enterprises are the best one because they have a huge amount of data. But from my
Mhm.
experience, it's more use case based. So even a small company, and I mean, just think about was Instagram when acquisition from Facebook like about 14 employees, but you can imagine how big amount of data, like how big that was. So I think the use case is more interesting here. And you can find even a small company with a huge use case where they IoT data and they have a petabytes, but still usually you will find like a lot of enterprises, especially because enterprises right now have kind of a way that they decentralize the whole organization and processes, and that they have explosion of the data. You will probably find a lot of enterprises looking into the Iceberg and thinking about to move, as someone told here in a chat, from Hive Metastore to Iceberg. Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And about for the I know that's for these days what people talk about for let's say the unstructured data, structured data. I know that's what a lot of people talk about AI, right? For so what kind of data we should store in Iceberg, like structured data, semi-structured data, or unstructured data, or what kind of data you yeah have you ever seen? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's quite interesting, the question. Well, first of all, what is structured, semi-structured, and unstructured data? Maybe that's something
Mm-hmm.
what we need to clarify because, from a computer perspective, everything is structured because they had some kind of a way how to store the data. But from a human perspective, it might be not very structured. If you look at the base 64 string, you don't understand what is inside, right? So from a human perspective, in Iceberg, we will first of all store the structured data. So we have a schema, and that's something compatible or comparable with like a Postgres database or like a Snowflake database where you have your table and you're going to store that. Still, there's a way to store some kind of a semi-structured type of a data inside of Iceberg, but that's not the usual use case, I would say, at the moment. But through the additional thing of geospatial data that's going to be stored in Parquet and Iceberg, then you have this type of a data as well. And I
Yeah,
do know that,
yeah, I saw the geospatial support, yeah, recently, and which
yeah,
means that people can store the geospatial data, right? Well, if you're working on something like, okay, I don't know, delivery app, right? Or something like logistics, you probably can just store the geospatial data inside of Iceberg. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Like that geospatial use case is usually kind of underrepresented and undervalued, but I would say we're going to have a lot of use cases in the future where geospatial is going to play like a central role. Yeah, therefore pay more attention. Let's see what we're going to provide in the future with Iceberg and geospatial. Regarding the unstructured data, it's again possible because in Iceberg you can store binary, so you can just go and store and like even images in a binary, but it's probably not the best way how you should do that or can do. There are better ways how to store like images because usually where the use case for that is like model learn like ML training or something like that, and that's not a usual use case. The usual use case I would say for Iceberg is structured data.
Yeah, cool, cool. I saw that's for in chat box where someone had mentioned that where we let's dive directly deep into the catalog. Okay, I just can't wait to discuss that topic. Well, yeah, let's just go into the discuss. We'll directly discuss what the catalog. So the first question I have is that well, look, why I listed so many catalogs. Why? Because well, look, well, if you check what if anyone checks the Iceberg documentation, you will see the documentation site where they listed so many catalogs. I just wonder why they want to have so many catalogs. These catalogs just came out at once, or it just like okay, they're in some kind of evolution. And I didn't even list something like Nessie, right? Well, because well, I mean, Victor, you were working on Dreamio, and I know that well, they were spending a huge amount of time in Nessie, and I believe that you definitely have some opinions on that, right? Well, let's discuss that. So can you just describe shortly that okay, why there are so many catalogs? What's the history of these catalogs? So which one comes first, and which one is the most recent? Yeah, things. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Let's just dive in. The first thing, maybe just to explain to everyone that if you use Iceberg, you need a
Mhm.
catalog. And now, maybe just to explain, we're not referring to like a meta data catalog where you're trying to collect the metadata, something what you know from Data Hub or from some Apache Atlas catalogs. That's a different type of a catalog. But unfortunately, uh, that happened that Word catalog was taken for that as well. So what is the catalog in terms of Iceberg? It is something what you can compare to information schema inside of your database. Because when you run your DDL statement, you would like to create a
Mhm.
table, and that statement communicates with information schema, aka catalog. And that catalog is in that sense very important because you need to store that meta information about about your table. And depends on the catalog, like for instance, REST, we're going to talk in a second. That catalog is even writing the meta file.json to storage, object storage for you.
Let me check well, whether I have this for the metadata, right? So basically, the data is in Parquet file, right?
Exactly. So data is like a Parquet file, or you can use
Mm-hmm.
it with Avro or with
Okay,
RC, and
Avro.
that is stored. Yeah, that's stored
Mm-hmm.
inside of S3. And catalog is in here plays the central role to provide you that kind of a filling that you talk to a
Mm-hmm.
table, and that is done through that meta level. And therefore, it's
Mm-hmm.
super
So you're talking about
important
this
to
part, right? Well, and actually also include this, right?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So this
Therefore,
thing, well, is called well, the blue part. Well, I mean, is called for the catalog.
yeah,
Or
absolutely. And
can choose by the catalog, right?
yeah, so on a REST catalog, it's something done inside of catalog. On different
Okay.
catalogs, it's done through the compute engine, but
Mm-hmm.
usually it's something done in catalog. So just to explain to everyone that if you say Apache Iceberg, you need to think about catalog. So which means if you build a lake house and you made a decision to build that with Iceberg, you need to answer on day one two questions: which storage you're going to use? Is it like something like a AWS S3? Is it on Google, on Azure? And at the same time, you need to say, okay, which catalog I'm going to use, because without catalog, you cannot create an Iceberg table. You cannot manage the Iceberg table. You cannot maintain the Iceberg table. That's something what is super important at the beginning. And then on day two, let's say you can think, oh, should I use Spark or should I use Python or something else? That's something what can be answered later on. But that's with storage and catalog, you need to think on a day one.
Yeah,
And
so basically, look, so basically, let me try to understand. So the entire thing, the green part for the right, well, is iceberg. Well, I mean, the data is just part of the iceberg, right? Well, and you actually have to think about what kind of catalog you want to use, right?
yeah, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
And
And
and we have so many catalogs, and you mentioned, well, I mean, we mentioned that, well, so how to stop this? Um, yeah, how to okay. And okay, so and you mentioned that well, we have so many catalogs, and yeah, we need to think about it. Well, and so I also mentioned that well, okay, there are Hadoop, Hive, Glue, DynamoDB, JDBC, REST. What's the history of that? Or what's the relationship? Which one come first?
well, I mean, that quite interesting question. Why do we have all of them, right? So, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think,
Why? Why not just
uh,
have one single catalog? Yeah.
well, because when Icebrook started, the Icebrook itself defined the format, and it
Mhm.
defined like how Icebrook works. But the catalog stayed open to the community, so everyone can actually innovate and build something around that. And it's how we started like Hadoop catalog, which was kind of like for non-production use cases, and you shouldn't use Hadoop catalog if you run in production. Hive was again popular at that time.
Wait, hold a sec. Well, Hadoop is not recommended for the for production use, right?
No, no, it's not recommended. So
Okay,
don't use
so
Hadoop catalog.
okay, don't use Hadoop catalog. Okay, don't use it, and it's not recommended for the production use.
Then yeah, and then like Hive Metastore and like
Mhm.
JDBC and Glue is kind of a Hive compatible catalog as well. It was super for the production use cases. The the kind of challenge with that was that if you have your client, you need to take that specific jar for Hive Metastore or for JDBC or for Dynamo, and like you had like, and then you said Nessie for instance as well. So you need to take that specific jar for that client in order to use it. And you can imagine that they all have been developed slightly different, which means for you as a developer, as a data engineer, you need to think about like, oh, I'm using that catalog. How am I going to implement this? And then there's a client who want to read from that catalog, and they need to think about that as well. So I'm using like Dremio, Trino, how we should just do the authentication, authorization, how the catalog ticks, and it all different way. And
Yeah. I actually
that
think
was a
that
challenge.
yeah, so actually I think one of the beauty of the Hive catalog, well, I'm not sure whether it's still the standard. But well, I think the beauty of the Hive catalog is that well, people can still use Hive, right? Let's say that I have a Hive data lake. Yeah, yeah. Or probably my company is using Hive. Then I can directly move from Hive to Iceberg, right? Can I do that,
You
or do I
can,
need to do some magic things? Yeah.
well, you can use Hive Metastore today
Hmm.
to write your Iceberg tables. The kind of the thing of Hive Metastore, what I see is that the community is not really active at the moment, and there
Okay.
are some security issues on the Hive
Oh,
Metastore.
what's kind
So
of security issue?
yeah,
Security
so
issue.
if you
Uh-huh.
yeah, so CV, so there are some vulnerabilities, and it's not quite super easy to run Hive Metastore. And I think the
Mm-hmm.
question is on the Hive, similar to Hadoop and HDFS, what we had like before, kind of but in 2025, the thing what we need to use, is it still something what should just remain, or should we just send the Hive Metastore, retire and think about like the future, what we can actually use with different type of a catalog? And that's
Yeah.
the central question. And I, to be honestly, I had a lot of discussions around Hive, because Hive, well, it did and it does it till now a very good job, and it helps a lot of companies to build a data lake. But on Lakehouse, it might be not the best way how to do that. But I'm happy to have a discussion with everyone who might think differently, just to understand like their vision about Hive Metastore, because we think at Vakamo and Lakekeeper a bit different. So we made a decision not to use a Hive Metastore as a protocol, but we made a decision to use REST, which is kind of the recommended way how to use it with Iceberg.
Yeah. Yeah, before talk about sure the rest, let's also discuss something about the JDBC. I know that well, for JDBC, right? Well, every time we mention a name JDBC, we think about the probably Postgres, probably MySQL, probably some others, right? Why we have the JDBC catalog? What kind of use cases?
Well, what I see is it's easy to start, right? So it's
Easy to
kind of
start.
understand.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's easy to start, and you can just use it. But if you look on day two, when you run that in production, you will see like all that interesting things about the JDBC, which are not nice.
Mm-hmm.
And you actually pointed that in your here list what are the problems, right? So single point of failure and query performance, so you cannot do the stuff. And then the question is about how you're gonna use the authentication, authorization, because it's one thing to enable
Mm-hmm.
someone to create a table, but it's a different thing if you would like to kind of control and govern your environment. And that's kind of interesting question, which is not easily done with JDBC. I mean, even Hive is probably better because you can use maybe Ranger to allow us the authorization part, or even like open policy agent maybe in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that's really, I mean, look, well, I have some experience using JDBC. Yeah, though I mentioned here that what database can be a single point of failure. People will say that's well, look, well, we can probably can just use, well, let's say Aurora, right? Well, AWS Aurora or probably RDS, right? Well, and but for the thing here that's well, I feel that's well, if you want to set permissions, well, then probably it'd be tricky. I don't know how to do that. Well, yeah, if you have any idea, let me know. But well, I feel that's well, let's say that's well, let's say my company has 1,000 people, right? And I want to give access to this group of people, I mean, to the table A, while the that group of people access to table B. I actually don't know how to set it correctly, right? Well, that's the probably one of the biggest issue for JDBC. I'm not sure my understanding is correct or not.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Mhm.
that's how I see as well. So the data governance is a quite interesting point, and the question is how are you going to do that? How are you going to give someone access? So because the thing is, if you're going to start and give like access key and secret keys, then it's hard to manage that through this type of mechanism, right? You need more fine access controls. How you're gonna do the assignment to a table or to a view. And right now I have a lot of this discussions even on how I'm going to use the column masking and row level filtering, which is not easy. And today is probably not even easy with current setup. And you need to think about the trusted compute, which going to provide you that such capability. So, like the use case, or the famous use case, the salary table, and manager can see the salary and employee cannot see the salary. So you need to mask that, or like credit card information, all that different use cases. So the governance is a cornerstone of data-driven companies, and that's not easy to do with JDBC.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I saw that there's a question about the iceberg. Sorry, not about the REST catalog. Well, I mean, yeah, let's discuss that part. Well, yeah. So before discuss that, well, I want to briefly mention that well, for Glue and the DynamoDB, these are basically AWS-based solution, right? Well, my understanding is correct, right? Because well, anyways, Glue is a AWS product, and the DynamoDB is also a AWS product.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe just to give you a little bit European perspective, because like when I spend time in Bay Area, everyone is like, okay, Amazon is dominant cloud vendor.
Uh-huh.
I can tell you in Europe is a bit different. We have a lot of Azure, we have a lot of Amazon, we have a lot of Google. So if you a huge company and you will go like to like DAX 30 or DAX 40, what we have in Germany, you will find that companies running today a multi-cloud approach. So you need to be very careful on in your architecture which central components you're going to take. So you can use easily like EMR and SageMaker, but how are you going to access from EMR a data which is stored on Microsoft? And that's hard to do that with Glue. And Glue is super good if your company is 100% in Amazon. If your company is in Amazon, AWS, then just use it because it's very good integrated system. And then I wouldn't even argue with you if you this type of a company. But if you see that you have partially data on-prem somewhere and you're thinking to move to partially to Google to Azure, then that's hard to answer if you use like Glue for all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that's well like well in some companies will uh I mean they are all in AWS, right? Well or probably the entire data infra is based on AWS services like Aurora, Redshift, I mean or SageMaker, right? Well I think well in that case probably using Glue is probably one of the best options. Probably the best option, or probably at least for its most convenient option, I have to say, right? Because well, you don't need to set up anything. You can just probably click some buttons and yeah, it was yeah provides a service. But if you thinking about okay, look, well, I want to manage something data in my own cluster, or I want to think about okay, shifting to GCP or Azure, then yeah, you probably want to think twice, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And especially like on a day two when you need to optimize your table, we're going to talk about that maybe in a second. Then that's something what you can use like on Amazon as three tables with optimization. But sometimes you probably need to do that on your own because you have a high frequency streaming job. And it might be that your streaming job needs to optimize. So how are you going to do that? And then you need probably a different solution as Glue Catalog. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so yeah, actually someone in a chat box mentioned that well, they are also offering S3 table, which means that more locking. So I have to say that well, yes, well, I mean, if you check S3 table, I think the idea is great, right? Well, because well, it was offers you something like okay, just to use S3 table and using a same way or very similar way as using S3. But if you look at the integration you will soon find that will it only integrate with I mean AWS products. I have to say that you can just check the website, the S3, search for S3 table and check their integration, and you will find that well, what kind of services they can be integrated with. I don't know well how open it could be, but well at the moment well it just means that well yeah more locking, right? Um So, okay. Anyways, well, I'm not. I yeah. I think that well, Glue is definitely. I mean, between Glue and the DynamoDB, I feel that well, most of the people are generally choose Glue, and because well, it's the go-to solution in AWS. But so I think the opinion is more about okay, whether you want to use some other services, like if you use one Snowflake, but probably you don't really want to use Glue because well, I don't know whether how yeah probably they can yeah you can definitely build some integrations but yeah probably you if you as long as you want to use some other services maybe not it's not the best option. Yeah, Starburst also offers for the okay, that's interesting. Starburst also have the so Lester in the chat box mentioned that was Starburst also is about to GA their S3 table integration. So that's great. Yeah, that's great. And we will discuss that well probably in the next webinar. And let's go back to the rest catalog because well, I think someone is waiting for the answer. Like we talk about the JDBC, and for JDBC, it's based on basically the you can essentially store the data, metadata in Postgres and MySQL, or probably some other existing SQL-based storage, right? Databases. But for REST catalog, some relation it also depends on the relational storage, right? Well, like Postgres, MySQL, I remember that well, we communicated last time. You also mentioned that you guys, well, Lakekeeper also use, well, I mean, you guys are REST compatible. You also use Postgres. What's the problem? I mean, it's not a problem, right? Or what's the difference, right? Well, because well, REST is also depend on Postgres, and JDBC is also depend on Postgres or any other SQL databases. So what's the difference?
Yeah, so maybe first of all, why do we have REST? And then they can just dive in all that detail.
Sure.
So because if you like yesterday without REST, then you want to use all one of them, you need just to go and then take that jar file, think about how to implement this. And on the other side, the vendors, they will develop their own clients and SDKs, and that, like it actually not really helping the innovation on the Iceberg side. And the community of Iceberg understood that something is like kind of blocking here. And to solve that thing, the decision was made to provide a REST interface that both the client side and the solution side can build and innovate, but they have like a common denominator, which is a REST interface, how you communicate with Iceberg table in case of you if you want to create a table or you would like to update some data and so on and so forth. And that was a kind of a, let's call it even as a revolution, not that big, but it was a very cool stuff. Because right now, if you want to use your Spark, your PyIceberg, your whatever tool you have, like open source, closed source, and if it supports REST, then you can go and take whatever catalog you want. And there are plenty of different REST catalogs. One of them, Lakekeeper, there's Apache Gravitino, Apache Polaris, who allows you actually to use that via REST and communicate with Iceberg. And you don't need to think about how to integrate that catalog. Everything what you need to ask, like on your side, does my client support a REST catalog? And if the answer is yes, then you're mostly good to go. You don't need to worry about that. The thing is, what you just Yungjin asked about why we actually at Lakekeeper use Postgres to store our state. Well, if
Yeah,
you look
so
at
basically the
Iceberg,
question is that's yes, well that's a question, and the rest basically the question is that for REST catalog, including Lakekeeper, use some relational storage like Postgres, like probably can switch to MySQL, but how it is different from JDBC catalog, right? Well, because well you
yeah,
both will use Postgres and or SQL based backend.
yeah. So first of all, we need to store the state of that meta file JSON. So
Sure.
we can store that on S3. That was something like historically that you could write that directly to the object storage. But now eventually you can say, oh, probably I don't need to store that because you have frequent update on the metadata, and you need to go and maybe to plan something or to give on scan exactly the plan. So you need to go to that meta file information and scan it. And it's why Postgres is very wonderful way, or like a relational database, wonderful way to do so. So we use that in order to keep the integrity of the database. So like the information schema, aka catalog, uses a backend service, and Lakekeeper itself as an application is stateless. So if you develop an catalog is an OLTP application for the all-up use case. That's kind of confusing, but catalog or Lakekeeper and other catalogs, they all OLTP type of application. And if you build the OLTP type of application, you better divide the application side and backend side. And backend, or like backing services, database services, if you need to store state, is a database. It's how we designed that. And every catalog kind of designed that way. If you look at Polaris, for instance, you can go and choose Postgres or different type of database. Additional to that, what we have, and we're going
So
to
you
touch.
mentioned that your Polaris also use Postgres, or use what kind of Postgres? What kind of database are you using?
Well, I think you can, if you if you're using the Apache Polaris, and you would like compile that catalog, you can then take it by yourself. So there is a way for Eclipse link. I'm not a Java specialist, so and that will, but you can go and develop that or implement that for dependency, and then you can use Postgres database for that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, well, yeah, to summarize your answer, basically for JDBC and the rest, for first thing, the JDBC and the rest are here, they are just the protocols, right? Well, it's more about how you want to interact with the Iceberg catalog. Well, it's nothing to do with the, let's say, Postgres, or either it's Postgres or MySQL, right? So it's just a protocol. It's just the way you access the catalog, right? Well, it's JDBC or REST. So you need to make a decision, either JDBC or REST. And for REST, it's more popular these days because it's an open standard. So that's why people are talking about JDBC, and that's why Polaris or the Lakekeeper and many others are REST compatible. But if you're talking about, well, let's say, what's the relationship between the, or what about the backend? Look, backend is just a storage. You can just use S3 or use MySQL or use MongoDB, or I'm not sure whether you can use MongoDB, but for MongoDB, Postgres, any kind of storage, because you anyways need to store the metadata in somewhere, right? Well, a storage. But the problem, as Victor mentioned, that, well, I mean, if you use S3, then the problem is that, well, I mean, you have so many frequent access updates to the catalog. You cannot just use S3 because, well, S3 is so slow, 100 or 200 millisecond latency for every single access. And it charges for the S3 access, not just charging by the capacity, right? So it charged by S3 access. Every time you access the S3, it will be charged. So you definitely do not really want to use S3 as your backend. So that's why you probably better use a database. And I think, well, because Postgres is the open standard, right? Well, yeah, nobody will object that, right? So that's why I believe that's probably one of the key reasons Lakekeeper want to use Iceberg as the backend, right?
Yeah, as Postgres, correct. So as I said, because like it's a transactional type of a way, what we need to do, as you just described, we don't want to go and do the transaction on S3, which is possible, but it's slow. It's a very expensive operation. So let's just take something which is kind of the way it was built for. And the thing is actually what goes beyond, because catalog is just only about the metadata. That what we see and we trying to develop is right now is to make the metadata actionable. And we can touch that in a second maybe, but we see a lot of more use cases around the data ownership, data governance, data quality. And it's why we need a way how we can access the metadata in a catalog way more faster and way more cheaper.
So, so there's a okay, very good question. Someone mentioned in the chat box about that, well, they are adopting Iceberg for their platform, and they are currently managing thousands of Hive tables. To manage those kind of transition, should they just, I mean, what kind of catalog they should use? Should they implement the dual catalogs, like, I don't know, well, both Hive and the JDBC, or both Hive and the REST? And so what's the most efficient way to do that, or to consolidate the metadata into a single catalog instead of maintaining multiple catalogs for different tables, right? So look, well, it's a
Yeah.
pretty standard situation. I mean, classic situation where people want to move away from just a Hive. They want to build an Iceberg on top of their Hive. What kind of storage they want to use? Oh, well, sorry, the catalog they should use. Tell me. Yeah.
Well, if someone made a decision, well, first
Mhm.
of all, they have Icebrook and they would like just to move,
Mhm.
they should look to a REST catalog. That would be my recommendation. You need to dig
But they
into
have
in a
already have
use
Hive
case.
tables. They have already have Hive tables.
Oh, they have additional to Icebrook Hive tables, some CSV, JSON, Parquet based tables. Do you mean that like that?
So what's that called? Hive.
I mean, do they have only Icebrook tables or do they have, because Hive Metastore allows you to have CSV-based tables. So it's not a table, but it's just a facade in front of a table. And here's the question is, if they have pure Icebrook on Hive Metastore, or if they have mixed, like the older way of tables based on Parquet and JSON, and they have Icebrook, then that's not an easy answer today. Today is the answer, if you just want to move Icebrook Hive Metastore to something else, catalog Icebrook, then I would recommend REST. If you have a situation that your company uses Icebrook, but it still uses some CSV-based tables in Hive Metastore, then there is no solution in direct way because none of REST Icebrook catalog supports that. And in that case, there are a lot of discussion right now if the catalogs, such as like Polaris or Lakekeeper, should look and kind of provide Hive Metastore or Glue catalog interface for this type of a table. So I don't have an answer for this if we're going to build that or not. But at the end of the day, if you will move Icebrook to a REST catalog or to whatever type of a catalog out of Hive Metastore, and you will keep your old tables, you will end up with two catalogs. And which is not a very nice situation because then you need to think about all that authorization stuff and so on and so forth. And well, you will increase the complexity. The kind of the question on that side is why do you still have like CSV and JSON based tables? Why not moving them to an Icebook table? So you have a
Yeah, why
lot of
not just
tools
use
around.
Parquet? Yeah. Should they just
So and
use Parquet? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, in my discussion, the answer to that question is like, well, we have our, let's say, NiFi, and that NiFi writes that CSV and writes directly to Hive Metastore, and that's kind of the situation. We don't want to touch it, and it's all kind of old type of table, and that's the situation, right? And then you need to think about like, oh, would you like to invest money and resources and move ahead to Iceberg because that help you in so many cases, starting with how you would like to optimize that table, because at the end, someone like some tool, some query engine needs to access that table, and it's probably not really queryable if it's not optimized. And therefore, you might see that return on investment moving from CSV, JSON, Parquet, whatever type of a table in Hive Metastore to Iceberg might add additional resources on your side by migration. But at the end of the day, ROE will be in a good shape because you will end up with a single catalog with future-proven data table, Iceberg, with authorization, with compaction, with maintenance through a single catalog. And that's kind of a future. But it's hard question. I mean, it's easy for you and me right now in a webinar to talk about that. But at the end of the day, someone needs to plan a project and migrate SEC based to Iceberg. Yeah.
So should we recommend that they should just stay with Hive Metastore, because for migrating thousands of tables, I feel that will
Yeah.
it be challenging. Um, they probably could
Yeah.
just stay, right? So because as you just mentioned, probably there are no good solutions at the moment to maintain two different catalogs.
Yeah, well, the first thing is that every company is different and there is no a answer to a company.
For
And
sure.
unfortunately, there is no a silver bullet that we can solve everything right
Mhm.
now. And the kind of ugly reality is that you will probably end up with two catalogs at the beginning, and then um, you need to go to that catalog what you're gonna pick. And first of all, you're gonna open the issue. That's
Yeah.
the first thing what you can do. And you can describe exactly what is happening on your site and what solution you actually need. And if you don't want to wait, the beauty of all that catalogs of Lakekeeper, of Apache Polaris, you can contribute. They're all open source catalogs. And if you like to, for instance, develop in Rust, then go to us and develop your feature in Rust and contribute that. We're happy to take your PR. And I think same to Polaris guys. We're happy to get your PR written in Java. And that's probably my recommendation to the company because catalogs are open source and you can just easily go and contribute. That's probably the answer for my side.
Cool. And then there's another question regarding the catalog. Well, is catalog essentially an abstraction or interface for accessing Iceberg metadata storage? For example, if we use any of these APIs like JDBC protocol, REST API, Hive API, Glue to access the metadata store, basically is can we just imagine catalog as the interface or abstraction for Iceberg metadata storage?
Can I talk to any about like any catalog, all catalogs? I can just tell you that Lakekeeper was created from scratch for REST. There is no abstraction. We just pure REST Iceberg catalog.
But you must
Well,
also,
and
well,
then
people do not really need to care about, well, let's say that we use Lakekeeper. People do not really need to care about where the data is stored, right? Well, I mean, where the
exactly,
metadata
exactly.
store is stored.
No, they didn't.
Mhm.
They don't need to care. They just. I
Yeah,
mean, that's kind of
that's
the beauty of Lakekeeper. If you want to run it, go and take the Helm chart, deploy that on your Kubernetes. It's super easy, and you can either provide your RDS services like Aurora from Amazon, or if you're on Azure, take the Azure Postgres or Google, and then you can run it. Or you can even deploy one of Postgres operators. They are very good operators for Postgres inside of your Kubernetes, and then you can deploy the Postgres with Lakekeeper, and that's all run by Kubernetes operator Helm chart. Yeah.
but well, can we use JDBC protocol to access to a Lakekeeper or Hive
Uh,
APIs, Glue APIs, whatever?
well, today you will use only REST,
Okay, today.
Iceberg REST. Yeah, and we have like couple of questions regarding like providing Hive or Glue. We haven't decided yet, but we're happy to get any contribution. If someone needs that, feel free to reach out, write in PR. We're happy to have a discussion about that.
Yeah, I think well because you guys are open source, right? Well, you people can just add a probably create an issue and say, okay, we want to have the JDBC protocol, and probably
Correct.
yeah, right. Yeah, I think it's also more like well, I mean, you probably can do the same thing to I mean other catalogs like Polaris, but I don't know, yeah, or some others, right?
Yes.
Um, okay, and let's dive a little bit deeper into the catalog internals because we mentioned something like okay, meta storage, right? When all these kind of things. So yeah, this is for your charts, right? Well, can you explain to us well, what's the table life cycle and maintenance for the fine-grained access control, computational governance. What are these? I think a lot. I mean, these were I just grabbed this diagram from your website, but I believe that's for its general purpose, right? Well, I mean, it's not
Yeah.
like specific to Lakekeeper, right? Well, I believe that's for all the catalog, all the REST-based catalogs where they are similar, right?
Yeah. So some of them are similar, some of them are specific to us. Well, the
Mhm.
first, which is like same to everyone, is that we support a REST interface that all that storages can be used. Like in our case, we provided you a way to use that for on-prem storages like Minayo or something like Dell compatible. S3 compatible like Dell, ECS, and all the different type of storages. But still you can go and use the cloud storages. And from a query engine perspective, you can use all that query engines that provide you a REST catalog. Like I know RisingWave does that, Trino, you can use Iceberg, you can use Spark. The table lifecycle and maintenance is quite interesting because the lifecycle is, well, it's kind of understandable if you would like to create table, update table, delete table. That is a default thing. The maintenance is quite interesting because you have 5 tasks for maintenance. 4 of them are on metadata. So you need to rewrite manifest and do all that stuff. And it's inside of catalogs, and it's easy to support. The very hard maintenance task is the optimization of a table through a compaction. You know, like if you use your Iceberg table and let's say it's a batch job which writes every 5 minutes, you will end up in a week with a huge amount of files, which means for a query engine, doesn't matter which one, needs to go and read every single per key file for you, which is not only about the I/O and it's super slow, but it's super expensive because every get and every list on S3 storage costs you money. So what you need to do, you need to run a compaction because every that small file can be rewritten to a bigger file. Let's imagine you have 100 files, and then you need just to go and create from 100 a single file, which means from a query engine, you're going to read just a single file. From a cost perspective, from S3, you're gonna just get a single file. So it's way cheaper and it's way faster. And that part is what we want to build inside of Catalog as well. So you don't need to think about that. So we can provide you optimization. But again, it's only if you want to use that inside of Catalog. You're still free to use that with your query engine like Spark, where you can just plan your optimization job and you can go and do that on your table, and you can use Catalog for that. The part of a fine-grained access control is quite interesting because it's not just about the life cycle you can create and drop your table. You want to say that marketing can go and write to the table, and sales can go department and read from the table. And if you look like at a standard, there is no solution for this. So what we made as a decision that we're going to use OpenFGA, which is open source as well, based on Google Zanzibar paper, which is a relational-based access control, kind of a superset from AirBag and ABAG. And we can allow you actually to go and manage the access on all objects within Lakekeeper, which is a system, project, warehouse, namespace, table, view. So you can do that through a catalog for a single person, for a role. We are just about thinking to integrate schema as well, and that just to give like every enterprise to do a simple integration with their existing IDP or EAM system. And computational governance is quite interesting because something what we think about a lot. Then we started our company from a data mesh perspective. One of the data mesh principle is a computational governance, which allows you to distribute your data on all the different departments within the organization, which is distributed as well and decentralized. So you have all the decentralized unconnected departments, but there is a single place how you need to govern that whole stuff, because you don't want to end up in a Wild West scenario. And that's something what we built in. I don't know, like if we have enough time to talk about that, maybe it's for the next session. But it's quite interesting what we're building here on type of actionable data to allow you to use computational governance.
So, you mentioned a couple of things, but I want to ask, something like, okay, regarding the fine-grained access control, is it standard? Do you support for something like role-based access control? I'm
Yes,
not talking
yes,
about
you can.
rule-based, right? Well, rule-based is like everyone is supporting that, well, but a
No,
single
no.
role, it's like a single role, right? Well,
Exactly. So inside of Lakekeeper, you can define a role, you can assign users to that role. What we don't have yet is that you can connect your scheme, like let's say you have Octo Enter ID, and to provide all your roles from your IDP to a Lakekeeper. That's something on the roadmap. And in that case, you can even manage that centrally because we don't want to make Lakekeeper an IDP. we truly believe that it should be only a single IDP. So catalog itself should not manage any credentials, personal access token, or whatever, because in that case, you will just lose the control of your system and access to your data. Only IDP should issue the token that you can access that, and only IDP should just do the stuff. You can do that inside of application and say, okay, table customer is accessible by role marketing. That is absolutely okay. But the token issued a token should be done by IDP, not by catalog.
Okay, we are running out of time, but I just want to ask you a few questions from the channel, from the chat box. Well,
Yeah.
so any computer engine that can support REST catalog can work seamlessly with Lakekeeper, right?
Yes.
Or
Absolutely.
do we need to do something? I mean,
No.
special?
Well, you
No?
need to install Lakekeeper. That's
Okay,
something what you
okay,
need to do.
that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, you probably have to install Lakekeeper. And pretty quick question. You can decide whether to answer or not. What's the difference between REST catalog? Sorry, Lakekeeper and Polaris?
Yeah, depending on the way you're asking,
Short
like the
answer.
easiest
Okay, we are running out
one.
of time. Yeah, short answer.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, short answer. One is written by Java and we're written by Rust.
Uh-huh.
We have OpenFGA. They don't have OpenFGA. And I would say we are more lightweight because we on Rust and they're on JVM. So there are different perspectives how you want to use it. So,
Yeah,
but
I think yeah, some
it's up to
someone comment
customer,
that
up
well,
to customer.
Lakekeeper is easy to use, right? Is that comment
Yeah,
correct?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. It's super easy to use.
And you mentioned that you choose Rust, and someone
Yeah.
asked, okay, what's the motivation to choose Rust for Lakekeeper? Do catalog operations need high performance? Tell me, yeah.
Yeah, the question is why not to choose Rust? I would
Why
probably
choose Rust?
rephrase
You are using
why
Rust.
why not choosing Rust? That's kind of a question
Okay,
because
tell me, tell
nowadays
us, yeah.
it's quite interesting looking at the data problem, and especially like we are in a data and AI infrastructure. We're a very low level component, and we need to be very light, and we need to scale, and that's something what we
Lightweight.
can achieve with Rust. Yeah.
Yeah. And are there ways to move from a ranger type access control to FGA?
Yeah, so if you use with Trino, for instance, what we built is open policy agent bridge, and that might even replace the Ranger. But we need to look into details on your case.
Okay, so yeah, to summarize, well, I mean, the Lakekeeper should be work with like many other the Rust-based catalogs. Well, it should be compatible with all these kind of data systems, right? For like Kafka, Spark, RisingWave, StarRox, well, Trino, right? Well, RisingWave, yeah, just a plug. RisingWave is definitely a pretty good ingestion tool for your catalog, for your Iceberg. And
Yes.
Lakekeeper is lightweight, right? Well, are there performance benchmark available for Lakekeeper, particularly given that's where it's Rust-based implementation? Benchmarks.
Benchmark with what? With Polaris or with who?
I
I
don't
don't
know. I
know.
mean,
Well,
who you want to compare with?
I yeah. Well, guys, from my experience, with an example, you cannot prove something or disprove something, and therefore don't believe in a benchmark. Do it on your system with your data, and then you will have an answer. So the benchmark of XYZ doesn't answer your question, and therefore my recommendation is always do it on your own, run a test, and then you will know.
Yeah. I mean, look, one thing I can prove is that yeah, because I tested, we have already tested Lakekeeper internally. We also have Polaris integrations. I mean, we also have support all these different Hive catalogs, and our recommendation is that I never tested, to be very transparent. I never tested the performance, but installing and using Lakekeeper is pretty, yeah, easy. That's for sure, and you can try it out. And it's in some cases, well, I have to say that for some features, well, it's more advanced, well, like credential vending. I think well for Polaris, so we actually have some customers who are asking for the permission access, but unfortunately Polaris doesn't really support that, and that's actually one of the reasons we are looking at the Lakekeeper, and because well, they have already had that. So if you want to have a REST catalog and if you want to, I mean, use all these advanced features and don't really spend time waiting for some other guys to implement, then probably you can look at well Lakekeeper, right? Well, I know that well some other vendors may implement the same thing, but well at least for now they have already had this, right?
Absolutely. Just guys, test it, and if you like it, give us a star. We're collecting star on the GitHub. We are happy to get your issue, your PR. Don't hesitate.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. And we are running out of time, and we actually have a lot of slides, right? So, but essentially we could not cover everything. So yeah, if you have any questions, just feel free to ping us, right? Well, we have we actually have so the committee. So yeah, we have the committee. I mean, so yeah, this number, I mean, you can take a screenshot, right? Well, I just grabbed this from their website, and you can just if you want to join the Lakekeeper Slack committee, then just join. Or if you want to join the RisingWave committee, you can use a Slack committee link, right? So okay, someone is using Lakekeeper for their client POCs. I think well yeah. Probably, yeah, Victor, probably can follow up. Okay.
Yeah. Super.
Uh,
Guys, thank you very much.
all right. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thanks. Bye. Yeah.